Now we created the base URI like this way. Again, we can also modularize more nicely, like we can integrate the concept of environment. Suppose we are working with some environment like development environment or test environment, something like that. So at first forget about that environment. Right now just think about we have only one environment. So this value we can modify over there, and from there it can read. And later in future, whenever we will integrate the TestNG framework, at that time basically we can use those file very nicely. So let's see how we can do this thing. So from here, from this package, actually I'm going to create one like properties file, new, and then I'm going to choose a notepad file or similar file like file, and then I'm going to create on file. The file name should be like config.properties, config and remember, you must have to add this type of file, config.properties. The extension should be properties. If you try to do other things like text file, it will not work. So I'm going to press the finish button so that the config properties file will be there. Config properties. Okay, now here we need to add the URL here. So here is the URL, right? So I'm going to copy it from here, Control C, and then inside this properties I'm going to define a variable like base dot URI. Then I'm going to press equal, and then I'm going to paste the value. So this is the base URI. Now our config properties file portion is done. I'm going to close it because we don't need it anymore. Now I need to add a utility class so that I can read that file. So I'm going to create another class, file new, then class, then I'm going to name it like properties file, or let's make it config manager file, something like that. It will be like that, config manager or config reader, for example, because it is going to read the value from there, and there will be nothing, basically no public void main, nothing is there. So just get the class, and then I'm going to press the finish button, and very shortly we'll see configreader.java is there. Once this class is created, then let's initialize the variable. So here we need to initialize on variable like properties, for set the properties. So I'm going to type the properties name like properties properties. Okay, and we need to define the data type. For example, the data type is properties. For this case, this is properties data type, and Java util class, it has this type of thing. So here this one, this is the class level method, not method, it's a like field. So I'm going to make it static and private. So I'm going to use private keyword, private private private, and then static. So we are creating these things so that we can directly call this we can directly access this variable value without creating the object. Now we need to read the file first, right? So I'm going to type static over here, static block, and inside it I'm going to define everything over there. Okay, so here at first we need to read the file, right? We can use the file input stream class to read the file, and we can define like FIS equal to new file input stream, and here we need to put the path of this file, this properties file. So the properties file is located here, right? So what is the properties? This is config.properties file. Right click, and then once you right click, it will bring this properties. From here we can click here so that the path will be copied. I'm going to cancel it, and now for the time being, actually I'm going to comment this entire path. So here this is a big path, right? So I don't want to use the whole path. I'm going to use this path. This is the relative path. So from here I'm going to access this thing. Okay, so this thing, so this path I'm going to use. This is the relative path. Okay, so I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to put it over here. Okay, now at last we need to add a comma. Okay, now here we'll get some warning or error because here it is telling that this is it is we didn't handle the exception. So we need to handle the exception. So if we move our cursor, we can use this in this option, sounded with try catch. So the if there is any exception, like the file is not readable or found or corrupted, then we'll catch the exception like this. Okay, so now we can remove this comment, we don't need it, and then we can format this thing, Ctrl+Shift+F, so the code will be formatted. Now here another thing is required, so we read the file, right? After that we need to define the properties value, right? This is the properties, right? So I'm going to type properties equal new, and we are going to define this properties properties class, because we are creating an empty object first of these properties, and then I'm going to initialize that thing, properties dot load, and then we have to tell that this is the file FIS. Okay, then like this, and once it is done, then we can also close this thing, what FIS dot close this thing. So where we complete this thing, we can close this thing. So once I add this thing, it is giving me some error. So let me check what is the error. So here it is showing, if we move our cursor over there, or if we click here, it will show everything. Add catch close to surrounded try, add exception to this thing. Okay, got it. So here basically here we are handling only file not found exception E, but we need to actually change it to IO exception. Okay, now the error will be gone. Now it is our code is fine. Now everything is fine, and here also we can add a throw statement, throw new runtime exception, runtime exception exception is there, and here we can write a message like this way, like for example failed to load config properties file, something like that. Okay, we can mention like this, failed. So here we need to write that thing, failed to load CONFI config dot properties file. For example, we can write this thing so that it is easy to understand. Okay, now this part is done. Now we need to add another thing. So here I'm going to create another public static method, public static string for this property, right? So this is the properties, right? So I'm going to type get property, and here I'm going to define on method. Inside this method I'm going to return properties dot get property, and here I'm going to type the key. So here we can put it like string type of key, string key, and here I'm going to type key, and then we can close a semicolon like this. Okay, now our code is almost done. So this is exception, we don't need it, not exception, basically this is not required at all. So I'm going to remove this manually, and this is our clean code. Now we need to jump to the next section. So here we can use this file, right? We can actually call this thing to read this value, right? So here get property. Okay, so we can call ConfigReader and then get property, we will get the value. So I'm going to jump to the testing API, not testing, basically this one, request builder. So I'm going to copy the entire line, Ctrl+C, and I'm going to comment it, and I'm going to paste it again here. So it is looking like this. So I'm going to remove this part. Here we manually added that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to access this property, get property, this one. So I'm going to type here ConfigReader. This is the class which we created, ConfigReader, and then dot, then get property. So it has method get property over there, and here we need to type the property value. So here, what is the property value of this config this file? Basically we have to check. So this is the file config properties. Here is the base URI. So I'm going to copy this variable name, and here I'm going to put it over there. Okay, now we are done. Now what we did, basically the summary is we created a properties file where we put the base URI, and then we created a config reader where we set the configuration, and this is a static method we are using to directly access that value. And finally, inside this API testing, not API testing, from this request response specification, we are initializing like this way. And now if we try to run the API testing, this thing, let's check whether it is working properly or not. So I'm going to run it again, and here we are getting this error. So there are a lot of error. Let me check what is the error and how can I fix it. So it is showing exception in thread main java lang stack overflow error. So let me check what is the error. It is coming ConfigReader java 27. So if we go there, here it is showing some error is coming. Okay, here what I did a mistake. Basically, get property I typed 2 times. So basically here I just need to remove this part, and on parenthesis also we need to delete. Okay, now try to run it again, and let's check whether there is any error or not. I'm going to run it again, and here it is working fine. So here basically this is the payload, request payload, and this is the response payload, right? And here it is showing booking ID is fine and total price is 100. That's fine. So that means our code is working, and here in this way we can actually separate the config file. This is the for big project we actually do this way. That's why I showed you how to do this thing. In the next video I will show you how we can set multiple environments. So here right now there is only one environment, right? So if we have multiple environments, how can we actually configure that? In the next video I'm going to show you that thing.